Welcome. The time is 3 p.m. on Sunday, and I want to welcome everybody to Sunday dinner. We have a very good spread put out before all of you today, and you have baby in the background because that's my granddaughter. She's a teeny tiny little love button, and she's trying to sleep, and I guess my mouth must have bugged her. William, how are you? And Sandy, hello to everybody. I'm so glad that you guys are here. You say, hello all, I'm present and accounted for, but just gonna kick back and listen. Much love. Aw, Naomi, Nevaeh, lay down, pretty girl. I think it might be quiet. Maybe she'll go back to sleep. There's nobody here to get her. And I'm scared of babies now. But today we're going to be talking about some pretty good stuff. We're going to look at tithing. Is it biblical or not? Now, I remember reading that the tithe was given to Melchizedek. Abraham took the tithe to Melchizedek. So, and then there's, even some of the New Testament people who believe that you're supposed to give above the 10th. The way that I just believe that I give according to how Yah leads me to give. That's just the way that I see it. However, we're going to get into some good stuff, Betty R. Yes, we are. Yes, we are, Betty R. Good afternoon to you. So we're going to look at all of these things. And then I also want to talk about right now, it feels like we are on the ark, as it were. When you're considering exactly what time it is, right now it's like everybody has been watching us tell them, hey, time to get it together, And now it's starting to rain. Hello, Steve. How are you? It's so good to see you. But I feel like, it is about right now. I just feel like we're in the ark and the rain is starting to, first it was drizzling, and then we all sort of said, well, we better head on in. And now we're inside, right? Yeah, we're in there. And while we're in there, we're hearing more and more rain come down. And I hope everybody comes on in because it is about to rain. And isn't it awesome that we're awake now and that we're in it now? So I want to go on ahead and take a quick look. Hey, pretty lady Sharon Marie is with us today. Let's see. I want to go on ahead and I want to take a look at I want to let Ronnie do the tithe part, because like I said, I look back and think of the tithe where we have the evidence of Melchizedek receiving offering or receiving the 10th, the tithe. And it was Abraham, right? I think it was Abraham, because Abraham gave tithe to Melchizedek. Yeah. And then you had a lot of the modern day preachers or whatnot sort of beat us in the head with, give me that rent money. There's a passage that's in the New Testament when I think about this that says to give, let everybody give, but not of necessity. Out of necessity, meaning, for example, I'm going to give a great example. If you had a need, and say, for example, let's just give an example. You had a bill, and the bill was like your taxes or something, and it was $2,500. You had that need of $2,500, and Yah blesses you with the 2,500 to the penny. So basically, you know exactly what he gave this to you for, right? Yeah. And you take that and then you take it and give it to one of these famous pastors or something. And when you do that, now you're still in need. I think that's the necessity. You know how the passage talks about, let every person give, but not out of necessity. I think a lot of times they took that passage and they said, let everybody give, but not because they think they have to. They took that word. And the way that I see it is that don't give what he gives you to take care of a necessity. Take care of the necessity because he supplied you with that. That's how I see that. Does that make sense? That's how I see that passage. Let me pull that up. Let every man give, okay, but not out of necessity. All right, so let's look here. Okay. Okay. Each one should give, but not, okay, here it is. Let me let you see it. All right, so each of you should give what you've decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. But now I want to go down here in the King James Version. All right, and I'm going to let you guys see it too. All right, there we go. So now here's the passage that I'm referring to, right yonder. There. All right, can you guys see that now? Yeah, I think you can. Here's the King James Version. Okay. Right yonder. Well, I just had it. Let's just read the whole thing. For as touching the ministering of the saints, it is superfluous for me to write to you. For I know the forwardness of your mind, for which I boast of you, to them in Macedonia, that Achaia was ready a year ago, and your zeal hath provoked very many. Yet I have sent the brethren, lest our boasting of you should be in vain in this behalf, that as I said, ye may be ready, lest haply, if they of Macedonia come with me and find you unprepared, we, that we say not ye, should not be ashamed in the same confident boasting. Therefore, I thought it necessary to exhort the brethren that they would go before you and make up beforehand your bounty, whereof ye had notice before, and the same they might be ready, that the same might be ready as a matter of bounty and not of covetousness. But this I say in verse 6, which soweth sparingly shall also reap sparingly, and which soweth bountifully shall also reap bountifully. Every man according to his purpose in his heart, so let him give, not grudgingly or of necessity. When I see that, not grudgingly, I think that takes, that's obviously evident. But the of necessity piece, I always looked at that and when I was in, regular ministry, I would tell people, don't give what Yah's given you, or God in that case at that time has given you to take care of your needs, because he is supplying your need with what he gives you. And oftentimes, if you think back to times where you needed a specific amount, he would bring that specific amount. And I think, and I felt that it was because he needed to highlight that amount to you to let you know this is that need being met. Now, does that make sense? So it says out of necessity. So don't give if he gives you the light money. Don't take, if the light bill is exactly $203.16 and he brings you $204, you're like, wow, what a blessing. Don't take your necessity, what you have need to do, and give it, because there's a difference between faith, foolishness, and presumption. When people think that, oh, I'm going to take this money that just happened to be the exact amount of my bill that I have a need of, And I'm going to give it because this pastor beat me over the head and made me feel guilty about it. And now I'm going to give it because the pastor said, well, you need to go ahead on and give it. Go ahead on and give it. It's what you need to, Reverend Porkchop gets up there and gives you a big guilt trip. Well, don't do that. Don't do that. Do not do that. Yah knows your bills. Yah knows your needs. Yah knows your necessities. He knows because he is all sustaining and he is your supplier. And he, as your supplier, will give you the specific things that you need that you may not even have shared with anybody else, but he'll have somebody put you on somebody's heart and mind, and he will bless you through a human's hands, obviously, right? That's what he wants you to do with it. So don't let anybody, especially those pastors, beat you up about it. Okay? Don't do that. Don't do that. And so that's how I see that passage. But it says, for Yah loveth a cheerful giver. Well, the cheerful giver part, I think that's, the qualification up here to not grudgingly in verse 7. Not grudgingly, he loves a cheerful giver. And he is able to make all grace abound toward you. So I look at verse 8, and this is just me. I look at verse 8 as answering or qualifying verse 7 in both parts, A and B of 7. That's how I see that. And God is able, just reading verbatim, and God is able to make all grace abound toward you, that you always having all sufficiency in all things may abound to every good work. Okay? And so when I think of the tithe, that's how I think of it. I think of it as, when you have that excess. Let me be quiet because I don't want to step into Ronnie's lesson. But when I think of the tithe, I remember back in the day how people would explain it to you, but it was used then in a different manner. And I believe that when y'all put it on my heart to share with people, do not give your light bill money. Do not give your rent. That is what you have. You take off the top and you give if you're going to give according to the way they're telling you to give here at this church. But do not take your bill money because ain't none of these people going to come pay it for you. And that's how I felt. And that's what I said. So I want to say hey again to Betty R. Says, hey, Steve. And she's hugging on Sharon's neck. And now Sharon says, it makes sense. There you go. Hoo-hoo. Love my peeps. There go my Fedora sister Lisa R. Hall. Hey. Hey, Betty R. There's our brother Charlie Sigler. Good afternoon, beautiful people in the room. I'll be listening. We're happy that you are. Good afternoon, Sister Rachel. What's going on, girl? I'm trying to whisper. I know you guys can still hear me, though, because I don't want this baby human person to really wake up because she's stirring now. They scare me now that I'm close to 60. But she's so cuddly and so cute. She really is. So when I think of that passage, I know that a lot of pastors used to beat people up, and then they would have the guest pastor come in and beat people up. And then they would have the other people say, well, you should give more. I believe that you should give according to how Yah allows you to give. And I believe that he will show you who to bless and who to give when you're thinking of just giving. But I know that a lot of the pastors and a lot of the guest pastors and all that other stuff would come in and beat people upside the head and make them, feel guilty. And that's not how it's supposed to be. Especially if we've done our due diligence to clear off that pineal gland that's in the middle of our head that they have attempted to calcify on purpose so that you're not hearing from Yah. Now, when you're not hearing from him, you really can't hear what he's telling you to do. If the pineal gland wasn't important, then why does the Vatican have gigantic ones outside of the Vatican? Hello, Ronnie Mann. How are you?
I'm well. Hey, let's do that. Mic check 1 2 1 2.
Mic check 1 2. I'm trying to be quiet because Naomi Nevaeh is in here asleep on the couch. I don't know why they left this little human in here, but they did, and then they left to go get something to eat. And I'm like, don't leave us with the babies.
I'm going to make an attempt to match your tone and your volume, and we're just gonna have a chill supper, a chill, quote unquote Sunday dinner.
Yeah, because I'm like totally just having coffee with my dessert now.
Can I jump right in?
I wish you would, because I'd have
Okay.
probably jacked some stuff up. I
No,
know the
no,
direction
no,
you're
no.
going in.
But hearing you out, you said you would submit that somebody give what they are, what I forgot exactly what you said now, but you just said it. According to what they would, as far you were talking about necessity or what have you.
Yeah, I'll give you
Hopefully
a
everybody can
necessity.
hear me because I am
Yeah,
really
you chill.
trying to match your tone right now. So, but yeah, I would venture, not even venture, I will plainly submit, I wouldn't give these churches a penny.
Not a dime. I just don't. You know what I think it is, and this again, you guys, is a very casual conversation. But what I think it is, and I feel like, you know what, I'm gonna give some another example. There was a time where I had had my first son, and he outgrew his car seat. Perfect car seat, but the guy was growing by leaps and bounds. So I had it in the trunk, and I had just had the fire department install another one in the back of my car. And I saw a woman with her baby sitting up and out of the car. He was standing in the back seat, and she was trying to make him sit down. It was another young black mom. So I pulled my window down and told her to pull over when we were at the light, pull up, in this next parking lot. And so she did. I went in the trunk and I gave it to her. Well, now somebody would say, well, that wasn't a tithe. No, that was me being led by the Ruach. And that time we used to call it the Holy Spirit. But that was me being led by the Holy Spirit to bless somebody. And I believe that that's how, when it comes to blessing one another or blessing people, that's how they know who He is, by us being obedient to Him. And I also told another story a while back about a time where I was in ministry school, and it was one of the girls that was from the, I think she was from the night class because I was in the day class. And what ended up with her was she had, yeah, she was in the night class. She was one, vice versa. But nonetheless, the deal was that she couldn't get home. And I was disobedient. I didn't give her. The Holy Spirit told me give her X amount of money, give her $20 or whatever. And I didn't even know her, but I was like, oh no, I'm not gonna just walk up to some random stranger and do X, Y, or Z. But the end result was the very next day when she had to come into our class again, I gave it to her. I rushed to give it to her. And she goes, oh, thank you so much. Did you hear me last night? She looked down to me. She said, did you hear me last night asking for people to help me get home? And I felt bad. And so I said at that point that I would never, ever not do what Yah told me, in that case, God, because that's what I used to refer to him as at that point. And it's interchangeable at this point for me right this second, because you guys know what I'm talking about, just to make the clarity of the situation. But my point is that in a giving situation, you really do have to have your ears, your spiritual ears on, and be obedient to him and do it as he says it. But as it relates to tithing, and as it relates to churches beating you up, or groups beating you up to say, give me the tithe, that's not cool. That's not cool, because in the same instance, yeah, we can look back and say Abraham did, give a tithe to Melchizedek. So we know that it goes beyond the law in that case, right? I believe that if it's a matter of an organization that you're receiving information from, and in this context, you've decided to, help that organization, that building, or whatever, that I feel like, what, take the number off and just bless accordingly, just give accordingly, because sometimes you may not have 10%. And I know people will say, but you're supposed to give it off top. Okay, I will stand corrected, but I just believe that you should give happily. Happily means if you've not gotten up to that, what happens if you don't get up to the 10% number? What if you've not learned how to get to the 10% and you can happily give 5%? Then I believe you should give the 5%. That's just me. That's just me. So I'm going to back up out of your teaching.
Well,
I'm going to back up out your teaching.
well, you brought up 2 Corinthians 9, so we can start.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to start there, but we can definitely start there since you had that pulled up.
Okay.
Um, and context
Mm-hmm.
is everything. Context is everything. What are you reading? What is it, BSB?
I think that's KJV. Hold on, let me double check.
Well, whatever it is, just let me know. I'm not
Yeah,
saying
it's
to.
King James.
Okay, let's go. Let's do King James then, if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I am, but I'm just saying this was just my this was my this is how I
Right,
understood,
right, right, right.
that
But
passage
let's dig in because
in
what I
verse 6.
said was hefty. I said I wouldn't give these churches a penny.
Right,
But
right.
let me qualify that, and I'll start off by saying, to answering the question of the title of this episode is, is tithing biblical? Tithing is absolutely biblical.
Mm-hmm.
Is tithing as we know it today biblical? Absolutely not.
You see, Shalom,
Emphatically
Sonia.
no. Oh, definitely. Shalom. Always shalom to Sanya.
How sweet. I love you guys. They're so cute.
But
Hey,
but
Rach.
but as we know it, as it had, what it is today, it's a farce. It's a mockery. It's ridiculous. And it is emphatically unbiblical. And let's uncover why I'm saying this and how I'm saying this.
Yeah,
If you have Second Corinthians up,
I
since you
do.
went
I'm at
there.
verse 6. Hey, Marty.
All right,
Uh
so
huh.
let
I'm
me
at verse
read. It
6.
says, "But this I say: He which soweth sows sparingly shall reap also sparingly, and he which sows bountifully shall reap also bountifully. Every man according as his purpose in his heart. So whatever your heart is purposed, give ungrudgingly. Don't give because it's an obligation, but give because you are a cheerful giver. Um, Now, context. Um, it's extremely important. And I'm under the impression that these pastors, preachers, pulpit thumper, the people that are behind the pulpit, um, I, I'm under the impression that they are aware that context is everything, and that's why they give you one verse or two verses at a time, and they don't give you the context of what is being prescribed here. So let's
And
do
that's
that,
why
and
I
let's.
think I used to get beat up a lot because I would be, telling people, don't you give that, don't do. And they'd be like, what are you talking about? You're dissuading
So
people from giving. But to be honest with you, Ronnie, I wasn't dissuading people from giving. I'm saying that if you're not happy to give it, sister, brother, don't do that. And if it's out your need, don't be giving these cats or anybody your rent money. Don't do it. You feel what I'm saying? Don't
well,
do that.
these people that are on the pulpit, they're disingenuous at best in saying what they're saying, and I am highly suspicious that they are aware. It's just that, I have to pay my light. We have to pay the lease or the light bill, or we need, the parking lot fund, or or whatever it is. Uh, um, you know, and we need that to be chunky. So give this money. But I'm highly suspicious that they are very aware of the situation. Yet there is a need to get your money.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say it like this: Yah does not need your money.
at all.
Yah does not need your money. So let's look at this, Second Corinthians chapter 9. Not even chapter 9, just the context of giving. Period. Let's look at what Paul is talking about, and let's uncover it. So the people behind the pulpit, they use this and they say, see, he loves a cheerful giver, and we utilize this concept and this portion of this letter to the Corinthians as and I agree with what you said, so I'll use this as a guilt trip to put your money in that offering plate. What's
Hmm.
interesting, it's an offering plate, but
Come
they
on.
conflate it with tithes.
And can I also say, since this is just a casual conversation, that they only hold on as far as Old Testament holdings or Old Testament theories or thought processes.
If they're
They
talking
only
about Malachi 3.
that as well, you know what I'm saying? And so to me it's like, well, wait a minute, which is it? You like Old Testament or you don't like Old Testament? And then, I really say, well, if you break it all the way down and come into the New Testament, well, then go into the book of Acts 4:34, they were all laying everything down at the apostles' feet, but it was with one specific thing. That means Sonia, you, Marty, Steve, Lisa, Rachel, all of us are together, and we all put our things into one pot. Again, we were talking about the socialist mindset before, as some would think about it. But put it all together, and then as everybody has a need, we are able to meet everybody's need so that nobody in our assembly has any lack. But I think that the way that the tithe has been taught, or the giving, okay, has been taught, has been one-sided at best. And again, you're speaking to somebody who is a pastor's daughter and who is a niece of pastors and licensed, ordained, and all that stuff. I just have never, even
Well,
though I've got those pieces of papers that they allow you to have, I don't live by that. Why? Because to me, I don't agree with the mentality.
well. I'll take it a step further. I'm speaking to a you know pastor's daughter, if you will, but Yah, Yah's set apart spirit is speaking to pastors, ministers, preachers that listen to you on this platform, and those people, stop lying. Stop lying. Stop lying. Talking about a tithe.
Yep.
Talking about an offering. This is ridiculous. Stop lying to your people, because this is what's going on. We're about to uncover the lie. And once your people understand that you're lying to them in this aspect, they're going to start questioning where else you're lying to them at.
Greetings to you, Black Spring with Autumn. Everybody is loving on you and saying hi. And I don't want to not say hey. I said hey to you the other day, and I think you had already slipped out. It's a busy lady, but I just want to tell you thank you for being here and welcome, welcome, welcome. Black Spring with Autumn is in the house.
And if you don't know, now you know.
Now you
If you don't,
know.
no, but I mean, as far as these
Yeah.
preachers, like
Yeah.
maybe you don't know because you're not versed in the set apart spirit. What you're versed in is theology,
And that's all. That's
and
all.
you conflate the two and thinking that you have a calling or what have you. But you know what you're called to? You're called to lie to people, and I'm being very blunt because you're stealing people's money. And you, you're kind of not stealing it, um
Well, it's
because
using the spirit of witchcraft because it comes over in a
you're
conniving
being
way.
deceitful. Exactly, you're being deceitful and manipulative into coercing people to give this money for a certain cause, but it really is a guilt trip. And let's figure this out, because um what's the context of Second Corinthians? And I'm being very blatant on purpose because uh, don't tune me out, preacher man. Listen to the Spirit convict you. And I know this is gonna be hard, because how you gonna pay them bills afterwards? But you better figure it out.
Well, no, no, I want to say this because here is the thing. Oh,
Is
this
that
is
too
sort of,
harsh? I,
it's not harsh because this is how I see it. I had very good pastors in my life and I'm going to use the smaller churches while I was away from, say, for example, California, and we were at different duty stations. We had one, I'm going to use him as an example, one pastor who was such a good guy. He did not take a salary per se. He didn't have himself on a salary. So everything that went into the church went to the straight bottom line to keep the church going. And he left the books open and he left everything public in that setting. Everybody here knows that in my past, I was in another church another organization to get me to where I am right now today. And I've already said I'm not going to ever take it back, and I will never ever be ashamed of it, but it was my path that led me here. And in that place, you would just give it in a box to keep the building going. You would not pass a plate. It wouldn't be anybody knowing, you didn't stand in a $5 line, the $10 line, the, penny with a hole in it bag line, the $100. We didn't do that. They just took it. And if you had something to give, you would put it in the box. If you had donations, you would take them there and drop them there. And so when I look at those things, I remember this guy did not take not one penny from the church. If we gave him a blessing, he would receive it and he would be happy. But you know what? We would give, but I believe that when my family would give to him, we were giving to him and we didn't know his need. He and his wife knew the need. Yah knew the need, but we didn't. But when he moved on our hearts to give it, they were grateful. And I remember them giving a testimony one time saying, you guys didn't know we had X, Y, or Z, and we didn't know where it was coming from. And people blessed them. So I feel like when I think about the pastors that I've known personally, like that other side of the family, who've been pretty, I don't want to say it to hurt anybody, but I just want to be upfront. I saw, okay, there you go. Thank you. Thank you, Ruach. I remember a pastor coming to the church telling on all the pastors, and his name is John Cherry. He did it publicly so I can say his name publicly. And he was from Maryland. He came into the church, and this was when I was at Crenshaw Christian Center, and it was at a big event where they had big heavyweight preachers. I mean, heavyweights sitting in there. We had cats from Texas. We had, big cats. He said, this will probably be the last time that I am invited here. He said, and I'm quoting him, but God has given me a mandate and he has given me a message for the people, and I have to tell it. And this is when he went into telling what happens to your money when you give it to these large churches. And he broke that thing down. And when I say he broke it down, that was the last time he was invited. It was the last time we saw him on a large scale. And John Cherry out of Maryland, okay, was one of the top cats around, right? But this guy, when I say he laid it down in the spirit of integrity, he laid it down and he said, what you don't know is, do you know where they go right after church? Why you can't find them? You see them big old SUVs pull up around the side of the church and take him off? Well, he got the money. Does it go to a bank? He said, not immediately. It don't go immediately. It gets to a bank. But I guarantee you, if you know like I know, everything y'all gave didn't go to the bank when it finally went. So he was laying it out and explaining it. But I know for a fact that this one preacher, while I was living in Missouri, he didn't take a salary. He took zero salary. No salary. This cat was still, he was a, believe it or not, he was a, what are they called? A psychologist is called also he's a counselor, but he's now has his PhD. Now he has his PhD, and he's a very kind-hearted man. His wife later on passed away not long ago, actually, but they were just very good people. His vocation was that he worked with youth, but he did psychology with youth. But he worked on his job. He worked on his job, and every penny that went into the church, he kept the church going. As a matter of fact, the church was almost paid off by the time we moved out of Missouri, because every penny that was given there went directly to take care of the needs of that house. And if it's going to be done, that's the way that it should be done. Does this make sense, what I'm saying?
Yes.
I hope so.
And
I hope
and
so.
I'm not saying that um every every person that collects your money is, a shyster or is shady or has ill intentions,
Oh, no. Exactly.
or
Exactly.
even utilizes your money improperly. What I'm stating is that the tithe as we know it today is unbiblical.
Hallelujah.
Unbiblical, and it is unfounded. scripturally. So, um, looking at the the context of what Paul is speaking. Okay, so basically, this is what's going on in and around chapter 9 of Second Corinthians. Um, Paul is boasting. Paul has been boasting about the church at Corinth to all of
Correct.
his, all of his homeboys.
Yeah, that's what we
So
read at the very beginning, you
so
guys.
he's like, yo, the church of Corinth has like such this a wonderful heart. They they are about the Father's business, so on and so forth. And he's again boasting about them, and he's sending some people to that congregation. So he's sending a letter beforehand saying, hey, don't make me look bad. I've been talking good things about you, and I'm sending some, some people that I rub elbows with. I'm sending them your way. So make me look good and don't make me look like I'm a liar
Yeah, context is
in
everything.
in boasting. So give to them and let them know that you appreciate them when they come and give you encouragement and support. And so what he's doing is he sent this letter prior to them coming, so there can be an offering readily available, so they won't have to last minute, gather up some funds to
For
give.
those people.
Right.
Yeah.
And these
Yeah.
people that were coming were they traveled, so they're going to need some type of lodging, they're going to need some food, and throw them some money, throw them a little bit of money so they can have, on their way back, they can have some change to be able to eat, because you don't want to muzzle an ox, quote unquote. you know uh, 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 you want to give everybody who's working, you want to give them their fair share or what have you, and this is the work that they're doing. So this was a one-time event that he was like, round up a whole bunch of money, and then he persuades them and convinces them with scripture, saying, mind you, if you sow sparingly, you're gonna reap sparingly. If
And that's the reason
you
why he
if you
said,
sow
I say. That's the
if you
reason why he
sow
said, I
bountifully,
say.
you're
Yeah.
going to reap bountifully. And side note, Yah loves a cheerful giver. So hook these people up that I'm sending your way. And that, I mean, that's a super paraphrase, but when you read it, that is the context of this. What the pulpit does is take this and all of a sudden twist it somehow to be a mandate.
Right. And that's why I made reference to the top of verse 6. See, one thing I'll say, I don't really care for Paul in his entirety. You guys already know how I feel about him, but at the same token, I have to be fair where Paul is concerned, because oftentimes Paul would always say, I, not Yah, or I, not God. He would make sure that you understand. That's why he says, but this I say, that he which soweth sparingly. And that's why I'm happy he said it that way in this context, because he's letting them know this is not a quote unquote mandate, as the now church does tell
It's
them.
not a mandate at
It's not a
all.
mandate at all, you know. He's saying, this is what I'm saying. You guys don't make me look bad. I'm sending somebody. Please take care of them.
He's persuading them, look, man, I've been bragging about, and then he actually caters to their ego a little bit, like, hey, I've been bragging about you,
Well, he's a
like,
salesman.
he's a salesman. He is a salesman.
He's a salesman.
And so it's no wonder that a lot of the people that stand behind the pulpit are are enamored by Paul, because they take a lot of his qualities and they run with it. um but even Paul understands that there's not a tithing mandate, because he tells them, he doesn't say, now make sure you give up 10%.
And
He
there's
says,
nothing
he
mentioned in
says,
tithes here.
give what your heart has purposed. So there's a conflation. There is a confusion. Uh, we're conflating a tithe and an offering. and putting it together and thinking that it's one and the same. These are two separate things. These are two separate things. And Paul understands this, and he is not, conflating the tenth, which is the tithe, which is the tenth, with give what your according to what your heart has purposed. So this is what's going on as well, is that as far as the pulpit is concerned, they tell you two things. They tell you both things. They tell you, hey, you got to give a tenth. You got to give a tenth, or we encourage you to give a tenth. And then they also tell you to give cheerfully and not grudgingly. So which one is it? Because this is the thing. Laws aren't arbitrary. If it was a law, you best do it, especially if it's Yah's law.
And it doesn't say that anywhere in the law. Sandy Aaron sent me a video last night, and it was so cute because she was like, I know you don't do videos, but just watch this one. Whoever that is at the bottom of that cup, there's nothing left, whoever that is. Who? And she sent me the video, and it was so funny because it was so spot on to where we were talking last night, but it was dealing with the quote unquote law and the laws of Yah. It was breaking it down, saying that if anybody comes and tells you this, they're pretty much out of line. But you, conversely, dealing with the tithe, you don't see the tithe listed anywhere in the law. I would say that love will motivate you to bless. Okay, I will say that if it comes down to somebody's, you know what I'm saying?
No.
Love.
A tithe is in the law.
It says give your tithes.
A tithe is in the law.
It says give 10%.
Yes, absolutely. It's in the law. See, this is what I'm saying. We have a misconception of what the tithe is.
Okay, but is it there? Does it say those words?
This is why. Yes, this is why. Okay. This is why I'm saying what I'm saying. And listen carefully. I'm going to say it again.
Okay.
The tithe is absolutely biblical. The tithe is absolutely biblical. The tithe, as we know it today, is unfounded, is absolutely unbiblical. So we have to break away from what we think is the tithe and find out exactly what it is and be able to do it properly. We're supposed to separate the set apart from the profane. And like you said, John Cherry did, like, I have an objective that Yah has given me, and I'm here to separate the profane from the set apart. And I'm going to display exactly what is what and how is how and what we're supposed to do specifically versus these traditions of men. That's exactly what it is. What we're doing today is the traditions of men, and it is conflation. It's confusion. When we think tithe, we think this, what is a tithe? A tenth. Okay, but of what? Of money. Who said that? Who told you that? Who told you that? I'm going to tell you who told you that. Rome. Rome practices theology. We're supposed to practice set apartness, righteousness. So let's figure this thing out. So it tells you right here in 2 Corinthians what the context is. He's persuading and trying to convince his peoples to give, to give a nice gesture of a hefty gift to the people that he's sending their way. And he knows that he doesn't have any lawful, he can't stand on anything lawful by saying you have to give. So that's why he's trying to persuade them, and catering to their ego as well. I mean, we've already established what the context is, and that is the case. And Miss Van Zyl, I can count on you to come correct. Yes, ma'am. It is food. The tithe has historically always been food.
Okay, but I do need to make it clear that if you guys are looking for the actual verbiage, the word tithe in the 10 Commandments, that word is not there.
Who said anything about the 10 Commandments? That is a misconception as well.
Because I'm speaking of the context in which I was speaking.
But the 10 Commandments, when you say commandments, that's a misconception that people think the 10 Commandments. Commandments are far exceed the quote unquote, uh, 10 or what have you. Um, we're commanded to give a tithe. We are obligated to give a tithe. Um, at the same time, we have to break down what it is, and it is food. And that's what I'm going to do here today. And everybody has a misconception. Everybody has a misconception because we've been eating from Rome's table. But I'm here to lay it down plainly. I'm here to lay it down plainly because they're duping you with the traditions of men, and Yah does not want your money. He doesn't need your money. He doesn't need your money. So we see the context as far as Second Corinthians is concerned. It's he's persuading, he's suggesting to give something. All of a sudden it's flipped to a quote unquote tithe mandate somehow because these people behind the pulpit are disingenuous. Let's go to Malachi 3, because Malachi 3 is the go-to for these tithes. When you go to Malachi 3, here, let me pull it up as well. Are you pulling it up?
Oh, yeah, it's on the screen already.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I'm gonna start in verse 6, or let's start in verse 6. You had the BSB. You had the let's do BSB. Okay, so I'm gonna start at verse 6, and notice the headliner, robbing God.
Yes. Now that's in the 10 Commandments.
Um, so because I, Yah, do not change, you descendants of Jacob have not been destroyed. Yet the days of your fathers you have turned away, yet from the days of your fathers you have turned away from my statutes and have not kept them. Return to me, and I will return to you. So once again, he's talking about you're not keeping the laws, statutes, and commandments that I have instructed your fathers to instruct you to follow, and you've already turned from them. And I could destroy you, but because I do not change, I'm not going to destroy you. But y'all need to hurry up and come back to me. And then he says, but you ask, well, how can I return? Will a man rob God? Yet you are robbing me. This is what he says. You're robbing me. But you ask, how do we rob you? In tithes and offerings. You are cursed with a curse. Yet you, the whole nation, are still robbing me. Bring the full tithe into the storehouse, so that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, so that there may be food in my house. So that there may be food in my house. The full tithe, the whole tithe into the storehouse, so there may be food in my house. Test me in this, says Yah of hosts. See if I will not open the windows of heaven and pour out for you blessings without measure. I will rebuke the devourer for you, for that it will not destroy the fruits of your land, and the vine in your field will not fail to produce fruit, says Yah of hosts. So what's happening here? He's telling you that you are robbing him of his tithes and offerings. How? Because you're not giving money? No, because you have turned away from the law, statutes, and commandments, and you're not telling your descendants, and you're not teaching the people to follow the law, statutes, and commandments. And because they're not following the law, statutes, and commandments, they are not going to end up in the storehouse. Listen closely. We are the offering. We are supposed to present ourselves daily as a living sacrifice to Yah. We are the offerings. We offer ourselves freely to Yah.
Hallelujah.
We're his offerings. Who is going to get, remember when we were reading um in Matthew, what was it, 13? Oh, I want to say it was Matthew 13. When we were talking about the wheat and the tare, and he takes
Yeah.
the wheat, he takes the tare and he burns the tare up. He puts them in bundle, he ties them up in bundles, and he burns up the tare. But then he takes the wheat and he brings the wheat into his storehouse.
Correct.
The wheat is food, and
Correct.
he takes it and he brings it into his storehouse. But that's a metaphor for us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We are the wheat that is going into the storehouse. But we can only go into the storehouse if we are following his laws, statutes, and commandments. Otherwise, we're going to get burnt up with the tares. So inadvertently, if we're not teaching people to obey Yah and his word, then we are robbing Yah of his full tithe. Are you? I hope we're following. So
I got you. I
we're
got
the
you.
ones in the storehouse. So we're the ones that are going to be put into the storehouse. So this is what's interesting, is that the people behind the pulpit, they tell you this all day long. They're like, look, you're robbing God if you don't give a tithe. And when we say tithe, we're talking about a tenth.
A tenth,
And
yeah.
and when they're saying tenth, they're saying a tenth of your annual income.
But see, that's where the whole, as you said earlier, conflation comes in. Because if you even look at it back at this time, listen, and I know this will seem a bit odd, but in that time, they didn't have necessarily coins that they were bringing. And even if you go back to Cain and Abel, they were bringing from the work of their hands in the field, one did, and obviously the fruit, physical, literal fruit. So I don't know. I think because I'm so exhausted with the whole quote unquote Roman church services type of stuff, it just gets me really wanting to just swack and swing. It even makes me feel like what Sandy just said, just give them monopoly money after they feed you fake food. So yeah, it is not necessarily a tenth of your cash. It's literally a tenth of the work that they had in this day, which would be food. It is food in
Yeah.
this day.
And see, I'm going to cover all those bases. I'm going to cover all
Yeah,
those
yeah, just a
bases
relaxed
because we're the
conversation. It's
people,
conversation, yeah.
that are getting duped.
Mm-hmm.
And it's offensive if you're duping my people. But who's the ones who's duping? Okay, so this is
Who's
what's
duping whom?
because this is what's going
Hey,
on.
Alan.
Behind the pulpit, they tell you this. You're robbing God because you're not breaking him off, 10% of your annual income, earnings, wages.
Yeah.
But context
Context.
is
Absolutely.
everything. So check this out, though. Who is he talking to? You think he's
have to
talking
know
to
who
the
he's talking to.
congregation? You think he's talking to the congregation? Hit that gray arrow to the left and go back to Malachi 2. The pulpit is going to make you think that this is a rebuke to the
Warning to the
congregation.
priests. Yeah.
He's speaking to the priests. He's speaking to the priests, not the congregation. He's saying, you are robbing me, not the congregation.
Well, that's Rome's whole deal. We're going to tell you what it is, and we're pointing the finger at you, but those that are pointing back at us. Is the way that they're, you know what I'm saying? The priests are pointing at the people, and all them fingers are pointing back at the priests, and they're trying to, in this day and age, the pastors are telling you what you should be doing. So and it's the reverse. Feed my sheep.
So you have to read the context. You have to know the context.
Take care of the people.
The context is Yah is rebuking the priests for lying. Scroll down. Let's read. It says you are lying to these people. You are lying to them, enforcing them and causing them to do all these other things. And I'm going to send a curse on you, not on the congregation, but on the priests.
Well, here it is in verse 2. You can't get no more plain than this. If you do not listen, and if you do not take it to heart to honor my name, saith the Lord of hosts, reading verbatim, I will send a curse among you, and I will curse your blessings. Yes, I have already begun to curse them because you are not taking it to heart. In verse 3, it says, behold, I will rebuke your descendants, and I will spread dung on your faces, the waste from your feasts. Oh, and you will be carried off with it. Wow. Then you will know that I have sent you this commandment. Very good.
So when we fast forward, we see Yahweh Shah. Who is he always speaking to? He's always speaking to the teachers of the law and the Pharisees.
That's right.
And even Malachi is speaking to the teachers of the law and the Pharisaical Levites.
Correct.
Except for you wouldn't have called them Pharisees back then because that sect hasn't been, established
Introduced
as of yet.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, that mindset or what have you is, it's sideways, contrary to Yah's word, and they're doing other things. Verse 6, read verse 6.
Verse 6 says, true instruction was in his mouth, and nothing false was found on his lips. He walked with me in the peace and in uprightness. He walked with me in peace and uprightness, and he turned many from iniquity. You want to go to verse 7?
Yeah, keep on.
For the lips of a priest should preserve knowledge, and people should seek instruction from his mouth, because he is a messenger of Yahweh.
Exactly. So this is the thing. If you know that you are lying, woe unto you. You need to be telling these people to seek the instruction of Yah, and you should be preserving the knowledge, not perpetrating and perpetuating the traditions of men. You have a quote unquote certain authority, hence an obligation to keep it real.
That's good,
but
Ronnie.
Man, I'm trying to tell you, you are lying. And if you don't know that you're lying, now you should begin to think and consider perhaps you are lying and perpetuating a lie. And if so, you are cursing yourself. You're doing this to yourself, and you don't even realize it. But you have departed from the way, and your instruction has caused many to stumble. I take this personally because these are my people. These are my people, and we are entrenched in a lie. Give me your money. Give me your money. Yah does not want your money. Yeah, seriously. That's absolutely correct. That image that's on the screen. It's absolutely correct.
You see that? You got all the sheep around it, and this wolf is literally a person. See that human hand? And that's a wolf in sheep's clothing, literally. And that's exactly what they do. They will take it. And so that's how I know you can identify Rome in the church today, because they do exactly what Rome's playbook has always done. And that is, they will use the word and use the Bible. Listen, the Bible was used to institute slavery in America. And now you've got a bunch of people not understanding that the Bible has your strength in it, when you can go in there and find out what Yah tells you about salvation, about the feast days, about keeping his commandments, about keeping his Sabbath day holy, about the moon, about the relationship between us and him. So they have used that very same book to twist things around. And that's how you know who they are, by the fruit and by their history.
So read verse 8 and verse 9.
Yeah, let's go there.
Malachi 2, verse 8 and verse 9. Read that.
Okay, Malachi 2, verse 8, verse 9. But you have departed from the way, and your instruction has caused many to stumble. You violated the covenant of Levi, saith the Lord of hosts. So I, in turn, have made you despised and humiliated before all the people, because you have not kept my ways, but have shown partiality in the matters of the law.
Exactly. So this is what's going on here is that Yah continues through Malachi to basically lay down all of the issues, all of the violations of the law that that Levi has
Steve
brought to the
says, are
table.
you the duper or the dupee?
Right, right.
Or are you the dippity doer?
But check it though. But check
Dippity
it. If you're
do.
the dupee, say you're the dupee, that means you're blind
Oh, okay,
because you're
and
allowing
woe
the
unto
duper.
the dupers.
Yeah, woe unto the dupers,
Woe
but
unto the
also woe
dupers.
unto the dupee, because the blind leading the blind, both are going to end up in a ditch.
But the one result for the dupee, which we've all been, once the dupee's eyes are open, first off, the dupee is, of these two, the dupee is the safest unless they decide to stay duped after the duper receives their just reward. If you decide to keep doing it, yeah, you got an issue. But yeah, the
Exactly.
duper is the one that he says, woe unto you who go
So
out here and mess over my flock.
exactly, exactly. So when we continue to see, this is a rebuke in
Feeding the
context.
flock poopy.
In
Uh-huh.
context, this is a rebuke
That's right.
to the priests. And then it proceeds in Malachi 3 to say that you are robbing me because you are leading these people astray, and they do not have the tools to enter into my storehouse because you're not preserving knowledge and you're not instructing them properly. So they can't have access to my storehouse, and inadvertently you're robbing me. The rebuke is to the priests, not the congregants, for not giving up some money.
As well as it was while we were looking over there with regards to the tithes in the book of Acts that they so eloquently use all the time. You know, bring it all, bring it all. But yeah, but then put it right. And then you saw there was a whole entire movement talking about the natural things now. There was an entire movement of people taking things and laying it down at the altar while on television, putting their money envelopes and stuff at the people's feet. But those cats would take that and roll out with it. They would not take it and say, "Well, let me stop. Thank you, Yah, because you just gave me a remembrance of a guy who's passed away." And he would take it and he would say, who here doesn't have a car? And he'd be passing out car keys and passing out money, and you guys gave this much last week and we're going to pass it out to everybody who doesn't have any groceries. And so they would do that, but in most cases that wasn't what was done with the passage in the book of Acts, where they would all come and lay it down at the apostles' feet that none would suffer lack. That was not always done. They would take it and run off, and that's what was being done in this day and age.
Absolutely, it's age old. It is age old.
Well, these are just a brood of vipers. It's just, to
Well, you have to have integrity if you are given a position of power. Otherwise, that power will corrupt you.
because power corrupts.
So you have to have a certain amount of. You have to
You
be
got to have integrity,
all
period.
yeah. You have to be all encompassing as far as being integral. Um, it is vital, and we see that this authority has corrupted people. This is an age old thing, but nonetheless, once again, I want to make this clear: this is a rebuke to the priests, not to us, not to the congregant or the pew sitter, but they flip it. So you have to know the context for yourself, so you're not being led by blind people. You can't be a blind person being led by a blind person.
But you know
You
what?
have
I
to
don't
you
even
have to
see it
know
as
it
a.
to call it out.
But you know what? I don't see the wolf as being blind. I see the wolf as just
Well,
acting out
well,
who he is in
but
his
like I said though,
entirety.
there's
You
some
feel
people
me?
that yes, understood. But at the same time, there's some people that are not malicious in asking you to, give the tithe and offering. It's just that that's what they've been taught, and they're really not, they're not being malicious at all. They're not they're not being irresponsible with your money. None of that. It's just that that's what they've learned along the way, and therefore they're blind in that sense. But the thing is, if you're in that position, you are sitting in the seat of a wolf in sheep's clothing regardless. And woe unto you, you should know better. You should be scrutinizing the text for yourself and not listening to theologians, not listening to it's theology. That's a Greek thing. Theos. Theos. That's
I don't,
not Yah.
I'm going to say something because of how wicked the system has been, it has made it very, it makes those of us who are even in the position to bring the word uncomfortable when we have a need, for example, because they've done it in such a bad way. And I have to be very cognizant of how I'm saying this because I don't want anybody to misunderstand me. There have been people who have blessed, who are just, I don't know. I think that this has messed it up for a lot of people who are just doing this because they love Yah. They're teaching because we love him and we love people and we want to see people get it and we want to help people. You know what I'm saying? For those of us who really do this because we love people, we know that this is not a lucrative business. We know that we could be doing other things. I'm just going to say that. We know that we could be doing other things as far as lucrative is concerned. All right. But I know that for me, as an example, anybody who's ever blessed and given it to me, I know they heard from Yah. Because for me, sometimes you will have to chase me to give me something. Please let me give this to you.
But look, you don't need to qualify that. That is not a tithe.
Well, no, that's not. But I'm talking about giving.
If somebody gives to you, I encourage everybody within earshot of this conversation right now to give financially to Felicia Lockhart specifically.
But see, I have a problem unless I'm really, 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 really at that door, and it's not that I haven't been. You will hear me say something very infrequently, and that's because I know that there's just a jar of olives in the refrigerator. You feel me? So when you hear me say that, it's because I know it's just a jar.
But see, that's a conflation. That what you're saying is irrelevant to the an offering.
But it's joined together.
But it's only joined together because of misconceptions.
And that's my point. That goes back to the way I started in the beginning, is that they have made this very difficult for people who just love Yah's people and who have dedicated themselves to do this because, I will just say there are people in the chat here who have blessed my household, and I know they heard from Yah. I know they heard from Yah because I never said, all I got is a jar of olives in the refrigerator, and then they bless me. And so I think that I'm gonna say that there's been some pretty bad, nefarious, no good, dirty dogs that have ruined it for people who just really love people. You know what I mean? Again, this is just a casual conversation, and I'm just saying that, and so it is important for us to understand that in as much as we know that there are, good people out here, that there are the bad cats, and we've seen the bad cats. Some of the bad cats have, again, outlived a lot of people. And I didn't even know that a couple of the cats that I thought was good cats was like high level Mason cats. I didn't know that. You know what I'm saying? So, and I didn't know that there was a cat who's a preacher who's got, airplanes that used to work for another cat, and he's a high level cat, but this cat was raking in everything. And then he broke a lot of people's hearts because they associated that person with the true and living God, quote unquote, the true and living God. And that's the deal. That's the problem. And see, let me say this. When you are in your face type, I'm going to get at you if I see you hurting somebody. Because for me, I will apologize to you first if I hurt you. And it's not a if. If I know I hurt you, I'm coming and I'm apologizing. I'm going to overtake you. I'm going to find you. I'm going to seek you out and I'm going to say, hey, I jacked up. I'm sorry. So when I would say something, when I saw a preacher or a pastor overstep their bounds and hurt somebody, the first thing that I would get would be the scripture that they say. And you can use this one as they say all the time. They say, don't hurt, and I'm going to paraphrase, don't put your mouth on the prophets and, touch not mine anointed and do the prophet no harm. And the way I'm seeing it is, if you're hurting his people, you cannot be his. And if you are, and you hear this and you stop and you repent, then okay, you his. But if you hear it and you keep going and you keep hurting these people, that's the reason why while I was in women's ministry, I would tell women, don't give this pastor your money. Do not take your rent and go and give your rent to him. Don't do it, because they were doing it. And to coin John Cherry's comment that he made when he came to the church back in the day, he said, you are taking your money and laying it at the feet of a man whose suit costs more than your car. Just let that sit right there. Go ahead, Ronnie.
Yeah. How did we get to Matthew 11?
I pushed the button because I wanted to see. I pushed the button. It was me. I did it. I did it like this.
Oh,
See
I
that?
got you. Oh,
You see,
okay.
there's a little button, and I did this because I wanted to see
The
how
correlation.
Matthew 11 tied in to Malachi 3:1-5. As John's disciples were leaving, Jesus began to speak to the crowds about John. What did you go out into the wilderness to see? A reed swaying in the wind? Otherwise, what did you go out to see? A man dressed in fine clothes? Look, those who wear fine clothing are found in king's palaces. What then do you go out to see? A prophet? Yes, I tell you, and more than a prophet. This is one about whom it is written. I wanted to see if in Malachi 1:3-5, if it looked the same, because they're referencing Matthew 11:7. And I wanted to understand, how
All
did
the
they
way to
tie that
19.
in?
All the way to
You feel
19.
me?
All the way to 19. Keep on going. All the way to 19.
That's
What are you
why.
saying?
That's why. The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say, look at this glutton and drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. But wisdom is vindicated by her actions.
Well, I'm talking about the context 7 through 19. Like, what is like that? Is that really talking about
No,
Malachi 3?
that's why I'm saying they will take a New Testament passage and stick it up and say, see, this ties in to
And
Malachi 3,
um,
1-5.
well,
And in an essence, dealing with the way you're talking about Malachi, it does. Aha.
so
But
so
sometimes it
thank so
doesn't.
so thank you for highlighting that, because look at this. Stop listening to people to get your righteousness on. What you're getting is your traditions of men on, and you're going to get your hellfire on inadvertently. The, what does Matthew 11 7 through 19 really have to do with Malachi 3 in context?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Stop listening to these liars.
Yep.
What they're doing is pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Like it's
Oz is behind the curtain.
right. Like they're telling you to look left when you should be looking right. They're telling you to look left when you should be looking right.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Get away from the curtain, kid. Get your little dog, girly. Get your little dog, girly. Well, yeah. I'm glad that you're breaking it down. I'm glad you're breaking it down because it's a needful thing, but it does make you a little uncomfortable. Rachel has here 2 Samuel 1:13 through 16. The Bible makes it clear to touch not the anointed means to bring physical harm and or death. And they would use that passage if you were definitely coming to correct them, and they would say, well, don't you know you ain't the pastor? No, I'm not the pastor, but I know that you should not be in that room with that woman while her husband is in the car with her kids, and you talking about you ministering to her. And I know that you should have your wife in here. I did that. I went to my mom and I were talking about this, and this thing happened really big and publicly. There was a lady in the office with my dad, and he had the door locked right there, and I was like, get out of here. You're not supposed to be in this room. Where's my mom? My stepmother. I was like, where is she? And yeah, I know that what I'm seeing is wrong, and I'm not going to sit here and be quiet about it. And I know that if you are taking this money and getting in the vehicle and driving off with it, and you're not helping these people who have to now fill out an application just to get money because you have a 501c3 and have to show where you took the money and gave the money, I know that's not right. I know that if this guy and this gal come to this church all the time and they have a need, that they should be able to have their need met here in the place that they're in. That's what I know. And so if I see it and it's wrong, I'm going to say it. It doesn't mean you're perfect if you correct somebody. It just means, hey, you know what? I know what you're doing is wrong. And if I see what you're doing is wrong and I get involved with not saying anything, then guess what? I'm wrong too. Nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect, but I'm definitely not going to see you hurting somebody and not say anything. Betty R says using scripture for their own benefit, money, fruitless vipers. Yes, ma'am. And Amy is cracking up laughing. So yeah, it does. It goes speaks. It's a hot rump mess. It's a hot rump mess. Is what it is. It is. But I like the fact that you brought it home and you're sharing with us that it definitely, most assuredly, is the priests. Both you as well as Rachel. Thank you for bringing that point up. Hey, Dion. So yeah, I think that's an exceptional point to make sure that we all understand that, hey, he's not just talking to, this cat or that cat. He's talking to the priests, the ones who are in leadership. The ones who are in leadership. And that's why I always make sure I say, don't follow me. Because I'm telling you, as a human being, you make sure that you understand that you're following people, but there are those of us who attempt to, in every way they can, live the way we're supposed to live. It doesn't mean we're perfect, but when you know somebody is doing what ain't right, that ain't cool. Go ahead, Ronnie.
So share my screen.
You already did. It's up there, Duty. You got Deuteronomy 14?
Duty.
Yeah.
Yeah, Deuteronomy 14. So what are we talking about? We're talking
but
about
it's not malleable on my side. You know that, right?
Yeah.
I can't manipulate it on my side. You'll have to
Right.
make it bigger and move it.
Is it small? Is it too small?
Hold on, let me try this. Hold on, let me do this. This I can do. There, I think it's big enough now. I just took us off the screen. But we can still be heard.
So what are we talking about? We're talking about the tithe, the misconception. And for some reason we're having this conversation about money, but money is irrelevant when we're speaking on the tithe. Money is irrelevant when we're speaking on the tithe. You want to give Miss Felicia some financial support for the effort and the job that she does, that she continually brings to households worldwide, please do. Has nothing to do with the tithes. Has nothing to do with the tithes. What is the tithe is the question. What is the tithe is the question. Deuteronomy 14, tithes. That's interesting. That's the sub title. Tithes. Be sure, I'm starting at verse 22 of Deuteronomy 14, and this is all over the place in scripture. I'm just utilizing Deuteronomy 14. Be sure to set aside a tenth. A tenth is the tithe. A tithe is the tenth. So a tenth and tithe, that's saying the same thing, synonymous. Be sure to set aside a tithe of all of your field's produce each year. Eat the tithe of your grain, new wine, and olive oil, and the firstborn of your herds and the flocks in the presence of Yah your Elohim at the place where he will choose as a dwelling for his name, so that you may learn to revere Yah your Elohim always.
Eat it.
So we are supposed to eat the tithe, and the tithe is for the feasts. When we're gonna see that as far as him choosing a place for the dwelling of his name or what have you, this is for the feast days. This is for the feast days. Verse 24. But if that place is too distant because you have to travel, because people traveled so we can gather collectively for the feasts. In verse 24, it says, but if that place is too distant and you have been blessed by Yah your Elohim and cannot carry your tithe because you got too much food, basically, too many groceries, because the place where Yah
Too many groceries.
will choose to put his name is too far away, then exchange your tithe for silver and take the silver with you and go to the place Yah your Elohim will choose. Use the silver to buy whatever you like, cattle, sheep, wine, or other fermented drink, or anything you wish. Then you and your household shall eat there in the presence of Yah your Elohim and rejoice. And do not neglect the Levites living in your towns, for they have no allotment or inheritance of their own. So the only time that the tithe is speaking about money is when you have too much food to carry, or it's too far and maybe the food will spoil or what have you, for wherever you're traveling, and you exchange that food, you sell that food for some money, and then when you get to the place where Yah has placed his name, then you use that money to buy whatever you want for the feast. It says, or other fermented drink. In other places, it says, or strong drink. So, I mean, this is the feast. So
What you talking about? Crown?
man, you want some crown? Use the money. Use the tithe money to buy some crown.
To go get strong drink? To go get crown? You mean you can get the black label crown?
Listen, this is what Deuteronomy is the second rendering. The word Deuteronomy means loosely means the second rendering of the law. This is the second rendering of the law. Like they wrote it down they wrote the law down to let you know what is lawful. And it tells you that you can use the tithe money, because the tithe money was converted to money for the sole purpose that you and your family go eat in the presence of Yah, eat food and be merry, basically, in the present, and rejoice in the presence of Yah. And it says you can use tithe money for some crown. Whereas Preacher Man says the exact opposite thing. You using the tithe money for, to go to the
for my black crown. I like black crown and vanilla crown.
But verse 20, I'm not saying to go buy some crown.
I'm gonna go buy some crown.
Listen, I'm not telling you to go buy some crown.
I know that.
I don't even drink. So
I know you don't.
No, but listen. I'm not telling you to go buy some crown. Deuteronomy 14:26, however, says use the silver to buy whatever you like. Cattle, sheep, wine, or other fermented drink. And in other renderings, it says, or strong drink. So I'm not to go buy some, because I'm not going to go buy some crown. But the scriptures clearly tells you that that you can go get some crown if you want some crown with the tithe money.
Because the tithe comes from the runoff of what you could not travel with, so you ended up selling it so you can convert it to the money, so that when you get where you're going.
However, this isn't just random.
Right, right, right.
Context. We're referring, the tithe is for the the uh the feast. You're saving up tithe so you can eat good in the neighborhood at the feast for you and your family. For you and your family. You give somebody else the money for the parking lot fund, you're not going to have any food to eat at the feast. Verse 26, use the silver to buy, and like it said, that's the money that's the silver that you exchanged your tithe for the travel. When you get there, convert, go buy whatever you want with that converted money, or anything you wish. The middle part of verse 26, or anything you wish. Then you and your household shall eat there in the presence of Yah, your Alahayam, and rejoice. And do not neglect the Levites. So the tithe is for the feast, and you're supposed to eat good. But if you gave somebody else, if you gave a charlatan your money, that's your fault. At the end of every
So
three
it's like
years,
Jack and the Beanstalk. It's like that.
hey man, hey, that's what you did. That's what you
Jack and the Beanstalk.
Because
Yeah,
I
took your
promise you,
stuff and bought you get one,
I promise you,
and
I'm
you got
saving
some
up.
beans.
I'm saving up the 10th so me and Sonya can eat good in the neighborhood
There
at
you
the
go.
feast.
There you go.
So,
Mm-hmm.
verse 28, at the end of every 3 years, bring all the tithes of that year's produce. So this is a sidebar. This is what you also need to do. At the end of every 3 years, bring all the tithes of that year's produce and store it in your towns, so that the Levites, who have no allotment or inheritance of their own, and the foreigners and the fatherless and the widows who live in your towns may come and eat and be satisfied, so that Yah your Alahayam may bless you in all the works of your hands. So every 3 years, you're supposed to have like a block party basically at the feast, and invite everybody who is, lesser than, if you will, and give them a plate and let them see how you get down as far as rejoicing and partying before your Alahayam, before Yah your Alahayam. And it should be a testimony to them, like, wow, this is awesome, and they want to be a part of it. The fatherless, but at the same time, these foreigners, of course, are the other nations. The fatherless is actually a metaphor for all of Yasharal that has been scattered, because Yah has turned his face, because we have lost our way and have sinned. The widows, that's a metaphor for all of Yasharal, because he has divorced his people, because we have gone astray and gone a whoring. So even in the script, these metaphors are strictly talking.
Gone a whoring.
It's real talk. The scripture is always speaking to Yasharal. And then the foreigners are anybody who cleaves to Yasharal. Um, and if they're in your towns, that means they have already cleaved to Yasharal. And the Levites do not have an inheritance of their own, so you need to give them a plate as well. And so this is what goes down as far, and what is it about? It's talking about food. It's talking about food. The tithe is the produce of the land, the fruit of the tree, or the fruit of the field, or the firstling of your cattle, or the firstling of your flock, or what have you. It's not monetary in nature. And the only time that it is speaking monetarily is when you convert it to money so you can travel. Then when you get there, you don't give it to the preacher man. You go and you buy a whole bunch of food so you can eat good in the neighborhood at the feast with you and your family. Okay,
At the feast.
so this has been established, and this is Deuteronomy 14. But you will see time and time again the reference of the 10th that is, and you need, because this is also the first fruits, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you're supposed to give unto Yah. But when we give Yah a burnt offering,
Mm-hmm.
when you read it in scripture, you don't just burn that food. Like, you give it to the Levites, and the Levites cook it for you. That's the burnt offering, and then you eat it.
You
You
know they
only
black. You know the Levites is black. You leave it to Bubba to be out there. Him and
hey,
Snooky and them out there barbecuing.
yeah, it's a huge barbecue. It is a huge barbecue. It's a huge
Girl, you
rock.
go ahead on bring that. What you got there? What you got? Some beef ribs? Bring them beef ribs. Bring them steaks. Bring that lamb over here. Let me barbecue. You buy it, we'll fry it. I'm sorry.
Nah, this is it.
This is, you know them Levites with some brothers. You know that Snooky them. Snooky get down barbecue.
So this is the
Beef
thing, though.
tips.
This is the thing. We are commanded to eat the tithe. We are commanded to eat the tithe. You can't eat, money. We're commanded to eat the tithe. Um, but like I said, how can you give? How can you and your family eat good if you're giving this? If you're giving it away to somebody else? Um, so pull up Matthew 23:23.
Okay, you that's your screen there. You know that, right?
Okay, I can pull it up then. All right. So, y'all, look at this real quick. Look at this real quick. So what is the tithe? Food, right? You'll see this referenced
Mm-hmm.
often.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go straight. Well, let's just go to 23. Okay,
Which is
so
why it makes
23.
sense where it says bring all the tithes into the storehouse.
Exactly. Exactly. The
What
story,
goes in
and,
the
and it's a
storehouse?
metaphor. So in actuality, you also see that we are the consummation. And what do? You consume food, and
Mm-hmm.
Yasharal is the consummation.
Mm-hmm.
We're the ones who are going to get consumed into the kingdom. We're the ones in the storehouse. So it's a metaphor for us as well. What's interesting is, I'm highlighting this in the sense that this is the red letter, and if it's the red letter, this is Yahweh Shah speaking himself. So Matthew 23:23, he's speaking to the scribes and the teachers of the law and the Pharisees. It says, "Woe!" So once again, this is just like Malachi. Malachi 3, "Woe unto you." And 23 says, "Woe unto you, teachers of the law and the Pharisees, you hypocrites. You give a tenth of your spices." A tenth. What's the tenth? The tithe, right?
Yep.
Of your spices,
Anise.
mint,
Mm-hmm.
dill, and cumin.
Mm-hmm.
He lets you know
It's
that the
food.
tithe is food.
Mm.
He lets you know that the tithe is food, but you have neglected the more important matters of the law: justice, mercy, and faithfulness. You have practiced the latter. I'm sorry. You should have practiced the latter without neglecting the former. You blind guides. You strain at a gnat, but swallow a camel. So the real deal here is to give and to show and have justice, mercy, and faithfulness without neglecting the tithe. You should be doing both.
That's right.
You
It's not
should be doing
interchangeable.
both.
Switch it out. Period. Just switch it out from one for the other. It's
Exactly. So it's
togetherness. Yeah.
two things. You should be doing both. You should and what is justice, mercy, and faithfulness? That's righteousness. Important
Mm-hmm.
matters of the law is righteousness. You should always maintain integrity and walk upright with righteousness. And what's righteousness? Following the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High. And without neglecting breaking off a tenth of food. And this is Yahweh Shah saying this out of his own mouth. He is, letting you know uh, the relationship between the tithe and food, because he says mint, dill, and cumin. Those are spices. Those are what
Very
fruit
expensive.
fruit of the land.
Yep. And the more expensive ones, by the way. Yep. 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 Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So I mean,
Let me tell you, mint by itself. Do you know that mint? As I know that, I know Sanya knows this. Mint by itself has unbelievable benefits. You could literally put one under your tongue and be filled at the cellular level. Cumin is a very expensive one as well, but mint, all of those things like mint, basil, all of those, you can put it under your tongue and leave it there. Go to sleep with it. Overnight, wake up the next day and you've been fed at a cellular level. That is you. Now, the other stuff you can fill up with on bulk, like just regular food, right? But that feeds you at a cellular level, which means it is of the more expensive. Um, one of the translations even says anise, Anise, which is another one that's very expensive. So he was very specific to put those particular ones listed there. The cumin and all of that, all of those are very, very expensive. Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
mind
What you
you,
got on the screen?
and mind you, that's the tithe. I just want to
Mm-hmm.
say that even Luke
Mm-hmm.
uh, um, tells you inadvertently. He puts these two ideas together.
Mm-hmm.
In verse 12, it says, "I fast twice a week and give a tenth of all I get." Like
Mm.
he's the
Mm.
look. There's a tenth, and there's fasting, which is the opposite of eating. But what I'm saying is still involves food in the same thought process.
I love that. Look at that. Say that again in number 12.
I fast twice a week and give a tenth of all I get. So
Mm.
what he's saying is that like
Mm-hmm.
he's he's not eating the food and he's giving it to somebody else or what have you.
Mm.
It's not.
Wow. Whoa. Oh my. Ding dong. Here comes a light bulb moment. That's the reason why everything in the United States is all built on the gluttony piece of it. Because it is food. And for this reference, just in and of itself, I fast twice a week means I don't eat. And I give a tenth of what I do get.
Of what I could have ate.
Right. Which means, ooh, boy,
I'm
oh
just
boy.
I'm just
That
showing you,
is deep.
but
Look
I'm
at
showing
that.
you the consistency of the
Gluttony
tenth
is
being
out the window
food,
with this passage.
but the tenth or the tithe being food.
Supersizing it is out the window, Ronnie, man.
Exactly.
Supersizing it. Supersizing is out the window. Not that any of us have money for that type of stuff anymore, but if you do, supersizing it's out the window. Do you see how Rome is even? Woo! They flipped the script, and now you have to see we're eating and eating and eating and eating and eating, and then you even get shamed for fasting once a week or once or twice a week. You gotta eat, you gotta eat. I flipped over to vegan, and now it's, aren't you gonna have any steak? Don't you miss steak? Get away! You didn't say anything when I was sitting up here dying, filling my stomach over and over and over and over and overabundance. But this makes it plain. Do you see Rome's hand in everything? If you guys in the chat see it, hit that like button, please, so we can get this out to more folks. I learned that from Jacob, that if those likes go up while we're all in here, it shoots it out to more. I didn't realize the true correlation. But if y'all get that, I fast twice a week and give a tenth of all I get. That means that I'm not going to eat it all. I'm going to pass some to you. I'm fasting for spiritual reasons, right? Is what he's saying. But I want you to know that even though I fast, that baby does not want her hair combed. Leave her alone. That even though he's fasting, he's saying, hey, and even though I fast, I'm still giving a tenth of all I get. Do you see the correlation with that? That is amazing. That is supersizing everything, and everybody's walking around with Dunlap. Unbelievably handsome gentlemen who used to play football in high school and college are now plagued with Dunlap. They've got the belly that's Dunlapped over their belt because of gluttony, and that's all in Rome's hand. Do you see what they've done to Yah's creation on so many levels, even with this? Gee willikers. Wow, Ronnie. That's rich, Ronnie. The word is
Right.
rich, Ronnie.
And context is everything though, because this man right here is praising himself inadvertently, saying, I fast twice a week and I give a
Right.
tenth.
But then think about that. Think about it. Even though he's in context saying that, if you look at that and we know that it's food, supersizing it is everything. I'm going to hit the table like you. Supersizing is everything. Supersizing is everything. And hey, we can go there. Supersizing is everything. Because that's what they do. You go, you get a big gulp. You can't just have 16 ounces or 14 ounces or a 10-ounce soda or an 8-ounce cup. No, you go get the big gulp, the gut buster. Yeah, we go get the gut buster. Yeah, this is that. It's all together. Every inch of this is all together. This is good, Ronnie.
So we see the correlation as far as in regards to the tithes being referenced in the same
To
sentence as
food.
eating.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So or food, exactly. So I'm trying to drive that point home that the tithe is not money.
Oh, no, we got it. I think we've got
Tithe
it.
is not money.
Oh, yeah.
Is not money.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
to your point, and I told you I was going to cover all the bases. They tell you that agriculture was the finances of the day.
Yes, it was.
That is disingenuous when they tell you that, because even though that is true, even though that is matter of factly true, that is not the case entirely, because they still had shekels.
Well, of
Now I'm not
course,
now I'm not
yes.
now I'm not talking about Cain and Abel's day or
No,
whatever,
no, 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 no. I know
but
what you're talking
as
about. What they
far as
paid the
Malachi
taxes
is
with.
concerned, but
Yeah, what they
as
paid
far as
taxes with.
Malachi is concerned, in that time frame, they had economics as far as money, as far as actually, actual monies they had, and
Oh,
the
yes.
agriculture wasn't necessarily
The commerce or the currency.
exactly the
Yeah.
currency. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
And the agriculture was not. So they're disingenuous when they tell you that. They're not giving you the full picture, because
Mm-hmm.
the fact of the matter
Well, they
is,
have to be disingenuous. If they
matter
were
of fact,
anything but disingenuous, they wouldn't be who they are.
it wouldn't be them, right?
It wouldn't be them. Hey, Poppy Love. We're just having a conversation, Poppy Love. So it's nothing tied up and all bound up. It's relaxed. It's the word. Hey.
Check this out. So there is money when it comes to the temple.
Of course.
There is money when it comes to the temple,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not a tithe.
Mm-hmm.
That's called a tax.
You know what's a trip? You know, when I used to go get my nails done, right? I used to go to get my nails done. And do you know the people would always have like an orange sitting in front of their God? Even their God, not necessarily saying that, that's something we're supposed to do. I'm using a reference point to show that this was their sacrifice. They would give food. They would give food. And we, for our feast day, we eat food. But the tithe is to. This, I hope somebody can hear what I'm trying to say. Talking about, oh, she talking about the ladies down there that do them fingernails. They keep having a big old orange in front of Buddha. I'm just showing you how the correlation is so almost, they sort of identical to get. They're sort of identify one with the other. Y'all know what I'm talking about for y'all who go to get your nails did. You see them had a little orange sitting there in front of the thing, the little Buddha. And you're like, huh, okay. All right. Go ahead, Ronnie.
Yeah, but just to round it out, like I was saying, what have you, the agriculture was quote unquote money back in the day, but it is disingenuous to say that, because there was also money involved in temple giving, and that was not called the tithe, that was called the temple tax. So, interestingly enough, why do you think tithes are able to be written off on your tax?
Because they're equating it with finances?
Now, no, I'm just saying rhetorical. That's like put two and two together. Because any money that you're giving to the quote unquote temple, that's a tax. It's not tithes. That's why tithes is a tax write-off.
In the natural way now. You're talking
Yeah,
about with the 501c3s
yeah,
and all that.
I'm talking about
Yeah.
as you know, as the traditions of men. Tithes tithes is a tax write-off because the tithe isn't a tithe. A tithe, as we know it today, is a tax.
Right.
That's why it's
That's
a
why you can
write-off.
get the money back.
That's why it's a write-off. You have to understand
Oh,
that.
separation between church and state ever. Just saying.
And that's interesting in and of itself. That's a whole
Uh-huh.
entire other conversation because why would you need 501 C3 exemption if church and state is already separated?
Well, because if you've got that exemption just on another finger on the same hand, not necessarily the finger that you're using, but another finger on the same hand would say that, well, we can control you better if we've got this. You
But
know, if
that's
you
what
got the
I'm saying though.
501c3, we
They
can
can't
control you.
control. They can't control you if church and state is separated. I don't need a 501c3
There you go.
exemption.
That's the other finger. But you can give
I
them
don't
any
even need
finger, but
one.
it's the finger, most assuredly. It's a finger.
But I don't even need an exemption if I'm already exempt. That just
Mm-hmm.
goes to show you that the United States is a corporation. But
There
that's a
you
whole other
go.
conversation. That's a whole other conversation.
But it's a true it's the same conversation, Ronnie Man. You know why, Ronnie Man? Let me tell you why, Ronnie Man. Because we're dealing with the same cats. The same cats. Because these are multifaceted cats. The cats are
But
multifaceted.
it lets you know that this Constitution has been compromised because uh, there's a separation of church and state. But if you have to do a 501c3 exemption, there must not be any longer a just understood separation of church and state. And you actually have to file it. That's evidence to let you know that something is, something
Very
else.
wrong with the pie. There is something afoot. There are flies in the buttermilk.
But that's a side note, which it all does tie in, but that's a whole other conversation. But that's the in relation with as far as a tax is concerned. Nowadays, that's why you can write off tithes because it's not a tithe. What it is actually a tax. And
Sonia said, I don't need an exemption if I'm already exempt. And Rachel says, marriage license. Yeah, because they control everything. That's the reason why you have to have a license for everything so they can stick their fingers in it. And that's why we got 3 thumbs up and a deuces. That's the reason why. That's why they do that. That's the reason why they make you have to have the exemption so they can put their fingers in it. You see, I'm going to say this, and it is off. It's well, I can say this because I can. It is all taking us around to get back to where it all started from. Every piece that we are describing is taking us back to where it all started from. And here's what I mean by that. From the Sonia statement saying, I don't need exemption if I'm already exempt, to Rachel saying, you know what, the marriage license and the separation between church and state, it all takes you back to the fact that it's the same group of individuals that are riding and beating the same horse. Because the control level that they want to have, they didn't have enough control. So they figured a way now to have that control. And the way that they've done it is, let's just put everything in one place so that we can control it, so that we can cut it off. Let's put your money in one place along with your personal information so that we can cut it off. Why? Because we have striven to be like the Most High in every way that we can. And since we see that we can't have our tentacles in every place at the same time because we truly are not like the Most High. Yeah, this is off, but it's off the topic, but this is on the topic. Okay? Because they know they can't be like the Most High. Even though they strive to be, they just figured out a way to put everything in one place so they can have all that control. So they can see your license to be married in one place. So they can see how many times you've had, your tetanus and rubella shots. So they can put their finger on exactly how much your mortgage is. So they can tell you, if you've given, if you've written off exactly what you gave. Do you understand that it has all been leading up to this point? Everything, even the misconstrued form of teaching as it relates to the tithe, all of it. It's all part and parcel the same party. It's the same exact group. That
So
is the
this
Elites.
money is so it goes back to give unto Yah what is
Caesar.
Yah's, and
Uh-huh.
give unto Caesar what is
Caesar. What is
Caesar.
Caesar's? Come on now. Also, hospitals will tell you that you can't leave with your newborn baby until you name your baby and they fill out their paperwork. That is because, boy, yeah, because that number that's on that back of that birth certificate has some significance. Just look that up. The number that's in red on the back of your social security card has great significance to the banking industry. So I'm going to leave that right there. But it takes us
It-
right back to the
and
same
actually,
exact
it's
point.
not. It's actually not your social security card, it's their social security card.
Right. Yeah. Because I mean, look, for those of us who are closer to 60, and in their 60s, haven't they been pushing back the Social Security eligibility date age? Because they know ain't no money in there. First of all, they didn't gave it to everything that's crawled and slithered across the border. They can come in and get Social Security disability and never even have sewn a piece of money into it. But the point I'm making is, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It is an account. It's an account that I made my way into one time and happened to glance at, Rachel. When I saw how much money was attached to my name, I was angry, closed up the laptop, and that laptop has never worked again. But my point is, yes, it is an account to your point, and it's all the same confusion. If they get you off of what Yah said and make it what they want it to be, and you still have the blinders on, then they've got the control that they wanted, which is the reason why they now have to have an NWO. They have to have it because they cannot control all of these people with their own thought processes. And that's the reason why it all comes back to the church 2.0. That's exactly what this is about to be. This is not assemblies I'm speaking of, Ronnie. I'm speaking of the church 2.0. Huh? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. The church 2.0. That's the reason why in a minute, everything you know, they know about you is all going to be in one place where they can turn it on and turn it off with one push of a button. Yeah. Your credit score. Yeah. Your social credit score. All of that. Yeah. All there in one spot. And this has a lot to do with it. It really does. If you don't understand this, then yeah, there's going to be some issues.
So we're being duped here. The tithe has nothing to do with money. Anytime that there is something to do with money, when it comes to a religious construct, it is a tax. It is a tax, and in this case, we're speaking on the temple tax. So the church telling you that there's a tenth that's mandated, that is modern day temple tax. That is modern day temple tax, and this is what's going on. Verse 24, starting in verse 24, Matthew 17. I'm reading plainly. After Jesus and his disciples arrived in Capernaum, the collectors of the 2 drachma temple tax came to Peter and said, "Doesn't your teacher pay the temple tax?" He replied, "Yes, he does." When Peter came into the house, Jesus was the first to speak. "What do you think, Simon?" he said. "From whom do the kings of the earth collect duty and taxes? From their own children or from others?" Peter answered, "From others." "Then the children are exempt," Yahushua said to him. "But so that we may not cause offense," so we're not going to ruffle any feathers, "go to the lake and throw out your line. Take the first fish you catch, open its mouth, and you will find a 4 drachma coin. Take it and give it to them for my tax and for yours.
And that is why I always think in the context of don't give it of necessity, because he always gives you the amount that you need for your necessities. Because he said, go down there to that fish, get that out, and that's going to be the amount to pay the taxes. Go do this. Do you
So
see?
look,
Mm-hmm.
so look, as children of Yahweh, we are exempt from giving money to a religious anything.
You better say that again and keep breaking that down.
It is a temple tax if you're giving financially, if you're giving monetarily, if you're giving currency, it is a tax. How? Because you can write it off as a tax write-off. It's obvious it's a tax.
And they do tax each other as well. If you're in the Church of God in Christ, you got to pay your dues. There's a tax to be a part of that organization. If you're a part of the Southern Baptist, you got to pay money. You're right. It's all a tax.
says that the children are exempt. As children of Yahweh, we are exempt from giving money. Let me say that again. As children of Yahweh, we are exempt from giving any money.
To
period.
The government.
He goes on, period.
Hallelujah.
Period. We're exempt. No, not to the government. Give to Caesar what is Caesar's. This is Caesar's government. Give him his money. It's his money. Whose face is on it? That's his money. But as far as the temple, as far as any religious, a separation of church and state, if you want to use that terminology, is concerned, you don't have to. You are exempt from giving monetarily to any religious function, any religious institution. You are exempt.
Hallelujah.
If they claim that Yah is the father of that house.
Marty, you're absolutely right. Marty Lauderdale says here in the chat, yep, I checked that number on the back of my card too. The corporation with my name on it is one wealthy corporation. Yeah, mine was too, and it made me close the computer. And Rachel's laughing, and then she puts what the name of the number is too. Yep, that's exactly what it is. You know about that, don't you, Ronnie, man?
Absolutely.
That's a creepy thing. Just give me that so that I don't have to have just the olives. Poppy Love says, Rachel Vanziel, okay, thanks. I couldn't remember those details. Not sure there's anything we can do about these things. I've heard people online say they've tried to fight it, but I'm not sure. Not only have they tried to fight it, some people have tried to do it, and some people have won and had to leave the country. So I just submit, just let it all be Yah's way. Right, Marty Lauderdale? You guys, I have a show that's coming up in about an hour, so I'm going to be getting off here pretty soon. We're at 1 hour and 56 minutes of this episode of the Lockhart Perspectives Sunday Dinner with Ronnie Mann. Today we are definitely talking about, is tithing biblical? Yes. I think that he's not only asked the question, but he's answered it as well. Ronnie, this is juicy.
Tithing is biblical, but in the sense of how we know it today, it is unfounded biblically. It is unfounded scripturally. They conflate they conflate money with food, and they force you through what, a guilt trip, if you will, to give and give and give, and they tell you that you're robbing God. This is not the case scripturally at all. And we just seen Yahweh Shah teaching out of his own mouth that Yah's children are exempt from the temple tax. But as to not ruffle any feathers, he said, go ahead and, pay it anyway. But this is what's going on here. That money that was paid for the temple tax, that did not come from a tenth of Peter's income earnings. That did not come from a tenth of Peter's annual income earnings from any labor. It was provided from the mouth of a fish.
This is awesome.
just to shut the people up and to pacify the traditions of men, not to ruffle any feathers,
You're doing great. This is
so we can
awesome.
get on through under the radar. So
Mm,
this is the thing. If for whatever reason you absolutely ever have to pay a tax or a tithe, or my bad, a tithe. No, it's a tax. If
mm-hmm.
you ever absolutely had to pay a tax,
Uh-huh.
the Father in heaven will provide it
Hallelujah.
as to keep you under the radar.
Hallelujah. Whoo!
You
Man, that's a
don't, it's
sweet
not
thing.
from your income. It's not from your income.
Mm-hmm. Mm. And do you see how sweet this is that Ronnie's explained it this awesome way? And here's why I say it like this. Because there is no condemnation. There is no condemnation. But didn't you feel condemned before? For those of us who have heard those, who've heard the rhetoric, and this is serious now. Um, for those of us who've heard the rhetoric, for those of us who have been, tasked with giving until the point of feeling that we're bad or that we don't love God or that we're robbing God, when we see it broken down this way, doesn't this help you stand up a little bit more erect and square your shoulders and say, no, I know the word and I'm stomping my foot down and I'm standing
Absolutely.
my ground?
Absolutely. So
Mm.
so where did this whole tenth come from? If I'm
Mm-hmm.
still screen sharing, um,
You're
uh,
not, because we're right at 2 hours. I took it off, but I can pull it back up for you. Hold on just a second. Okay, go ahead.
Hebrews 7, the first two verses, it says, "This Melchizedek was the king of Salem and the priest of God Most High. He met
Mm.
Abraham returning from the defeat of the kings and blessed him. And Abraham gave him a tenth of everything." First, the name Melchizedek means king of righteousness. Then also king of Salem means king of peace. So,
Hallelujah.
so this is where the whole tenth comes from in the first place. Abram, he was or Abraham, he was Abram at the time,
Correct.
uh, gave the king of righteousness a tenth of all the spoils of war. He went to war with five kings. Abraham did,
That's
and he
right.
took them for all their goods. And he met Melchizedek on the road and gave him a tenth of the spoils. He didn't give him a tenth of his annual income for the rest of his life. He gave him
Mm.
a tenth of the spoils of war.
Wow. Can you imagine, Ronnie? That if that were the case, that means that you're putting that person in the place of Yah by continuously just giving to that person like that, in that case, like a church or an
No
organization.
man behind the pulpit is Melchizedek.
At all.
No man behind the pulpit is Melchizedek. You give a tenth to Melchizedek, and then you give a tenth to the Levitical priests, because the Levitical priests uh, take that tenth and they disperse it among the people accordingly. You can do it that way because it tells you to give the tenth every 3 years. But then again, that's every 3 years. That's not every week annually from your income.
Yeah, they would even break it down to that, Ronnie. They would even go say, see, you don't give on this. It was the conversation between the net and the gross. Uh, you know what I mean? And I remember saying, but wait a minute, that doesn't make sense because by the time my job gives my check to FICA and to, all these other taxes, now you want me to, it just never seemed, and you could never ever get the right answer. Ronnie, I appreciate you for being here with us. We'll be going over to the headlines with a voice shortly. And so I'm very happy that everybody was able to tune in to answer some of these outstanding questions. I know that it will not be the last time that we have this conversation or that we talk about this. I just think that it's amazing the stuff that's sitting right there in this very book that we have had at our fingertips, right on the side of our bed. Even if you was sitting in a motel, there was one sitting on the left side of the bed right there in that drawer. Okay? Some Gideon decided to leave it there. My point is that the word is available no matter who you are, no matter where you are. And Ronnie, we appreciate you as usual for breaking it down the way that you do whenever you come here. You always bless us. For those of you who would like to give to the Mann household, I'm going to ask Rachel to please put their contact information right there down below in the description, or in the, I should say, in the chat box. So that way, if you choose to share some bread with him or share something with him, that you can, and that would be at your leading. With that said, is there anything that you'd like to say before we close, kind sir?
Yeah. We have to know this word. We have to know this word, and the traditions of men does not make you righteous. Being obedient to Yah's word makes you righteous. You have to figure out what his word is stating. Otherwise, you're just reaching in the dark. And on that note, as far as this title of this episode is concerned, stop giving your hard-earned money to these charlatans.
I like it. Thank you so very much. I love it. It's plain, and it can't get no more plain than that. You guys have been an unbelievable treat being here with us today. And I just want to tell you thank you. Thank you to each and every one of you. We've made a little bit of a change with some of the information on the Lockhart perspective. You guys go in and look it up and see what's different. Something's a little different, not a bunch. But I just want to say thank you. Let's see, at about 55 minutes, you'll be seeing my little happy, shiny face on Headlines with a Voice. We are going to be dealing specifically with a little lesser known news. So we're going to be talking about things that have not been sort of pushed in your face right now, right? And so that's what we're doing. We're talking about stuff that's not necessarily prevalent, that's not necessarily things that you would know. And we're not going to be before you long while we're there, simply because of the fact that they really don't like you to chat that long over there. And we really don't need to. We're just going to get in there and maybe spend about 15, 20 minutes max and share some information so that you guys know some stuff that you probably didn't. Okay? All right, everybody, I want to tell each and every one of you, thank you so very much for being with us. Remember what we always say on the Felicia Lockhart Group's publication, and that is, that man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of the Most High Yah. You guys take care of yourselves and take care of one another. And until we see each other again, please continue to be blessed. Take care.
Lockhart perspective.